I look at kids today and some of the struggles they have with mental health. That's stuff they don't deal with in Iraq. People don't get on social media and worry about what their friends are doing, or
when you're worried about survival, you're not worried.
You don't worry about that.
Exactly.
You got bigger problems in the world. You really do. And
yeah.
I think about what our kids deal with now. When I was growing up, my buddies were hanging out and I wasn't invited, I would never have known.
Right.
Unless they're going to come back to school and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But now, because of social media, you know right away.
Yeah.
And I think that has a big part of why kids are struggling so much now, is that information overload and what they have access to, and where they spend their time, quite frankly, in front of that cell phone or computer monitor. And unfortunately, people, we call them keyboard warriors. They sit behind a keyboard and they're just angry.
You have a lot bigger balls when you're behind a screen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're a real brave dude there, sitting behind that computer and chucking insults at people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it certainly has changed, and I'm glad I didn't grow up now that my kids are. I don't know how I would have dealt with that.
Do you think there's a way around that in a community? Because, in order to have a very, affluent, safe, well-respected area for people to want to come live, it does need to be safe, and the convenience does need to be there. So how do you think, if it's even possible, do we change our society so that there are things that we either have to do that we can't just pay somebody for, or do you think that's just a choice you have to make as a way to shape your life, or do you think there's a way we can help push people that way, in a way?
Well, I can tell you in our community, I think a big reason why social media is so prevalent in our kids' day-to-day activities is because you got a lot of professionals in here who are busy and they're working hard and trying to get to whatever their goals are in life, and it's an easy out to give your kid a cell phone and allow them to do what they do, unsupervised oftentimes. And I can say in my household, we've been guilty of it as well from time to time. It's kind of a lazy fallback for parents. The other side is, we live in a society today where people are scared.
Yeah.
We're scared all the time now of our kids' safety, what's happening, when we're not around. And that cell phone is a link to tracking where they're at and what they're doing. And
there's a lot of good that comes with it.
There is, and it's hard to give it up. Like, for example, my son's diabetic, and I get on my phone at any time and I can tell you exactly where his sugars are. And when you're a diabetic parent, you're always worried about it going too low or too high and the physical ramifications of that. So we've given him a phone. He's had a phone since he was probably 7 years old. And I'll be the first one to admit that, do I check it enough to see where he's going, and do I monitor his time when he's at home and what he's doing with it? No, because it's like a medical device for us. And we forget the other piece to that, hey, he has access to things that maybe 13, 14-year-old kids shouldn't have access to. Yeah. And so I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but certainly it's been a crutch, I think, in our society.
Yeah. Well, and I think, as you said, there's a lot of good that comes with it, but there's a lot of, this is a great comparison that I've heard, is it essentially gives you the eye of God. And we're not designed for that. We're not designed to see what's going on all over the world at all points of the day,
That's right.
And that's part of what leads to anxiety. It leads to fears. It leads to lust. After what other people have.
That's right.
When you see somebody living their best life on social media, well, let's be real. We know that that's not every day, all day.
Yeah.
But that's what you see. Of course, you're like, man, my life sucks. I live in the middle of a bunch of cornfields.
That's right.
I want to be them sitting on a beach in Bali. And we're not meant to see what everybody's doing at all times of the day. And I think that's a negative side effect of it. With anything good comes bad too, right? We live in a fallen world,
And how many people post on Facebook when they're having a fight, or when they're sad, or when they're doing something they don't want to do? It's always good stuff, right? So you build this aura of being perfect or having a perfect life, and when it's just not real.
Yeah, well, it just takes keeping up with the Jones to a whole other level.
That's right. This week's been a topic conversation in my household. We didn't go anywhere for spring break. We're probably the only one in my neighborhood that didn't. I'm campaigning. I'm knocking on doors and doing things you have to do in an election, And, my son's frustrated because, he sees his buddies on social media in Florida or Punta Cana or wherever else they go.
Yeah.
And we're in Westfield, Indiana, and doing what we do. So I get it. But it certainly has a toxic effect to it.